the fact that you guys came out on a Friday night. I really appreciate it. Hopefully what I shared tonight will inspire you, will inform you. I think we are kindred spirits. Many people view me as a behavioral psychologist, so I'm not trained. Just 30 years of professional life and interacting and collaborating with a lot of businesses. So the idea I want to share with you tonight is one idea. Whatever I say, whatever I proclaim, argue, defend, it's going to be around this one idea. And if this idea resonates with you, I'm going to ask you to do one thing, a couple things with it, okay? On the left, Aaron Fierstein. In December of 1995, his 5,000 person textile mill burned down. Third generation family. He had $300 million in insurance money, 70 years old. Could have retired, took his money. He decided to rebuild in New Jersey where the mill was still smoldering. And he made a remarkable decision. He decided to continue to pay his employees while no revenue was coming in. Wow. This caught the attention of 60 Minutes. There's a great YouTube video you can see. Morley Savior interviewing Aaron Fierstein. And Morley goes, it might be a nice high-minded moral gesture to continue to pay your employees while no revenue is coming in, but it could have been good for business. And Aaron Fierstein said, well, Morley, it was good for business, but that's not why I did it. I did it because it was the right thing to do. In the center, the University of Michigan Medical System, one of the most prestigious, effective medical systems in the United States. A few years ago, malpractice lawsuits were soaring, millions of dollars being paid out in malpractice. Under crisis, the senior doctors got together and said, what business are we in? And they said, we're in the responsibility business. So they went to the corporate attorneys and the administration of the hospital and said, we want to authentically apologize when we hurt a patient. The attorney said, you can't do that. You'll be found guilty in a court of law. And at the time, that would happen. So Hemme and Hawaii negotiated, went back and forth. They were allowed to apologize. Not out of Machiavellian effect, but when they genuinely felt they hurt a patient. Something amazing happened. Malpractice lawsuits dropped by 50%. Payouts dropped by 50%, so they saved millions of dollars. And now at least 37 states in the United States now allow doctors to apologize without fear of prosecution in a court of law. They set up a wave. And they took the same authentic behavior, this human behavior, and applied it to other practices in delivering healthcare, and they got better, effective service of healthcare. What a concept. On the right, Adam Brown. You guys heard of Adam Brown? Almost lost his hand, lost his eye, got recertified. You don't recertify a Navy SEAL. They don't do it. He did it. And his team, Navy SEAL Team 6, took out Osama bin Laden. But Adam wasn't there because he died in 2010 in Comar Province, deflecting fire away from his team, saving their lives and dying. Tens of thousands of people showed up in this little small town of Arkansas. And at his eulogy, they said, Adam Brown personified commitment. Failing was okay, but failing to try was not. He always kept his word and never compromised his promises. What are these examples of, guys? Of exceptional behavior. Now the bad news. 7 out of 10 employees, at least 7 out of 10 employees are disengaged. 2 are actively sabotaging the business. They're working against the mission and purpose of the business. Now I know what you're thinking. In my company, we have much more elevated culture. Well, let me tell you a story. Senior executive of a company felt he was hiring really good people. They were growing fast, so he gave them the opportunity that if you had a brother or sister or a relative you wanted to refer them to the company, we'll hire them if they're qualified. So every year they'd see their engagement scores go up. And then one day the senior executive in a management meeting to a middle manager goes, that brother of yours graduating from Harvard, MBA program, you're going to recommend him to the company, right? He said, hell no, pardon my French. He can get a job anywhere. My cousin Steve, no one wants him, I'm going to refer him to the company. So engagement scores going up. We're hiring the wrong people. We got to go deeper behind the measurement of engaged cultures. Why is this happening? Because once we had a management guru, Adam Smith, who wrote The Wealth of Nations, the Bible of capitalism. Most people on Wall Street read businesses and follow his view of capitalism. Do you know what his role was when he wrote the Bible of Capitalism? Most people thought he was a capitalist. He was the moral philosophy chairman at Glasgow University. Capitalism wasn't what you can do, or can't do, or will do. It's what you should do. Cooperative interactions, mutual interactions manifested at scale in markets. But somehow we chose to interpret it as some zero-sum, win-lose game of capitalism. Why? Because we chose another management consultant, the Godfather. The famous line in the movie, "It's not personal, it's just business." Well, if personal is personal, business is business, then you get just politics in Washington. It's all about politics. You get bosses telling their employees, "I don't care how you do it, just get it done." Greed is good, too big to fail, occurs. Why is this happening? The reality is, and John, you talked about in the introduction about personal to business. Those worlds have fused, guys. There's no more separate sphere of business over here and personal over here. And I think your generation gets this. You ever been to a eulogy where they said he was a ruthless businessman, but a devoted father? Does anyone respect that behavior? I know a lot in my generation are realizing that's not a behavior to emulate. The reason why is we've gone from distant to hyper-connected, from easily hidden to hyper-transparent. And it's all personal. Just ask the 1.4 billion people on Facebook, right? Everything's personal. There's no such thing as business. And if it's personal, that's about personal responsibility. So if there's no more distance, then an 18th century philosopher comes back into play. David Hume. I'm quoting 18th century philosopher, guys. That got me a standing ovation in London. The moral imagination diminishes with distance. The moral imagination diminishes. Well, there is no more distance, guys, so we need to reawaken morality back into the interactions and the conversations. And if we've gone from connected to interconnected to morally interdependent, there's a saying that the opposite of love is not necessarily hate, it's indifference. The opposite of morality is not immorality, but amorality. And the opposite of responsibility is not irresponsibility, it's no responsibility. So I believe in this fused world of personal business, this hyper-connected world, is that we're all rising and falling more collectively than ever before. Because a banker at his computer can lose $2 billion in a trade, wipe out compensation for all his peers in the industry, and inject global risk into the economy. And a Tunisia vegetable vendor with a few friends with cell phone cameras can launch and spark a revolution across the Middle East towards freedom. Why is this happening? Where would you see on the cover of Forbes magazine from a couple years ago? Welcome to the forthcoming social revolution. Fortress business, the walls are coming down, guys. That is coming right square at the CEO and his team. Example, you guys use Netflix at all? A few years ago, the CEO was feeling pretty cocky. They were having this explosion of subscribers. Do you remember when they tried to raise prices? In 24 hours, 800,000 people bolted from the platform. 24 hours. It crashed their stock on Wall Street. They retracted the price increase. Remember Bank of America tried raising $5 per debit card transaction? People on Facebook and Twitter, they exploded with anger, and in 24 hours they had to retract that. Where have we seen this type of collective behavior? We live in interesting times. Do you want to hear a great story of personal responsibility? You ever heard of Martha Payne? 9-year-old student in Scotland. She did not feel her school was serving responsibly nutritious food. So she took her smartphone and started taking photographs of the food, blogging about it, posting it to her website. She soon got 1 million views on her website, $50,000 donated to her for a cause. The school panicked and banned her from blogging. Banned her from blogging. More and more people came. Thousands of dollars more got contributed to her cause. The school retracted and now serves more responsibly nutritious food. The Martha Paynes are coming to work at your company. This is how they think. Now, I don't believe we're just in the era of standard of trust behavior. We're neck deep into it. And if this is important, and behavior has always mattered, it matters in ways that I just explained, you know, it mattered in tribes, but technology is just taking that another level of amplification. And many of our leaders are just waking up to this reality. It's a big change for them. So I want to talk about rethinking. I'm going to engage you on rethinking. If you don't think we're in a new era, and I respect that opinion if you don't think we are, then we should reset, reform, and reboot the current system. Right, guys? But if you think we're in a new era, we need to have the courage of Albert Einstein to rethink everything. Have the courage to rethink all our assumptions. And if behavior matters, it has always mattered, it matters in ways that I just explained, then we should probably rethink behavior first. Now, how have we been treated around behavior? We've been pretty defensive. When do we tell a child to behave after they misbehaved? When do we talk about good, responsible behavior? He was let out of prison early for good behavior. CEOs and business leaders have been quite defensive. I've met a lot of CEOs the last 10 years, and they want to win. They don't like to play defense. They have organizations, and they say, Rob, this is really, really important stuff you talked about. Can I introduce you to our corporate legal counsel, our chief sustainability officer, our chief risk officer? Because here's the reason why. If companies don't want to violate child labor laws, they don't want to have mistakes with CO2 emissions or corporate malfeasance, they want to have a world-class goalkeeper who keeps the ball out of the net. But when the goalkeeper says, hey guys, there's too many shots on goal, keep the ball on offense, i.e. all players, everyone on the team needs to connect, collaborate, engender trust, keep promises, earn deeper loyalty, and earn relationship capital. That is now the source of long-term, enduring, sustainable advantage. Manpower proclaimed, we have entered the human age. Totally agree. Businesses need to be more human. Us humans need to build our brands so that we're visible and aware on social and on digital, because I present about social credibility too. If you're not visible consistently on social, you're considered irrelevant. Having a LinkedIn profile is not enough anymore. Companies are getting this. Chevron with the Human Energy Company, Cisco, the Human Network, Ally, we speak human. Now I know it's one thing for businesses to proclaim to humanity, it's another thing to implement that with protocols and governance that enables human and leadership behavior. Now I want to talk about a story of an organization, iconic organization, NASA, developed a space shuttle, one of the premier engineering marvels of the 20th century, and how the human aspect of the organization failed. In 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded, taking off. What did the federal government do? It went through a deep assessment and analysis of everything about NASA, the organization. And certainly they found a lot of gaps in their governance, risk, and compliance processes. They implemented Six Sigma quality and just-in-time technologies and project management processes. They built the perfect NASA. So what happens? In 2003, Columbia breaks up, coming back into Earth orbit. They go back and do another analysis of NASA, and certainly they did build the perfect organization. What they found out was that the young engineers felt disrespected by the senior people. They didn't feel that they were being listened to. They knew about the problem with the foam insulation, but they couldn't speak up. They felt disrespected. They didn't trust their leadership. Was that a technology issue? It wasn't technology. It was a failure of the human aspect of business. So we're great as a country and as a global economy at measuring how much. How much GDP, how much revenue, how much profit, how many tweets, how many friends do we have. We're great at measuring how much. The head of Bloomberg stated that we know that companies tend to perform better at doing the right things, but until there's more proof, I don't think investors are going to do anything about it. Wow, for a CEO to say that. We've not come a long way yet. So how do you see this? I believe we need to rethink measurement. We need to measure how we do business. As I mentioned earlier, it's one of my ideas I'm going to share with you. So I've been pretty passionate about this topic, talking to executives, and they said, Rob, I need proof. Well, guess what? I finally got proof. The Boston Consulting Group, in conjunction with LRN, talks about this topic at the World Economic Forum. It's very close to President Clinton and the Global Clinton Global Initiative. 18 countries, 36,000 employees, 2 million observations. There are basically 3 types of cultures in companies and organizations. On the left, and this is some of my terminology, which is a little bit different than his, we call that the conformity mindset. Very rigid hierarchy, dictatorial, fear-based, do it my way or get out type of culture. 43% of companies are like that, 18 countries, across multiple cultures. Acquiescence, informed acquiescence. We agree to the carrots and the sticks. Still command and control, rules-based. The journey of success is you progress in your career, you move up, you know, the classic success. And that's the majority of companies, so 54%. The bad news, at the highest level, do the right thing, self-governing cultures, connect and collaborate, only 3%. These are people who work very self-governing. They don't need rules. They have a higher purpose. They have values. What enforces their behavior is not letting the team down. They don't want the public rebuke of not keeping their commitments, which drives their mastery, which enforces trust. They get stuff more done. And what's great about this, as you move from left to right, everything you want less of as a company, everything you want more of, improves. Misconduct drops. Innovation goes way up. Loyalty goes way up. Satisfied customers triples. Ideas, good reputation, recommended as an employer, and financial performance. This is the one that really gets the CEOs when I talk to them. Goes way up. The reality is the firms that do it the right way, that treat their employees and customers and stakeholders well, with good intent, competency, and purpose and passion, they're making all the money. So the Drucker Institute, I had a chance to be in Vienna, and they talked about Don Tapscott, famous thought leader. And I talked about this earlier over drinks. Since 2000, 43% of the Fortune 500 is gone. They say by 2020, another 50% is going to be gone. It's going to be really hard for big businesses to transform to this more human aspect. Why? Because they got all this scale and structure that kind of crowds out all the humanity in the interactions. And we need to rethink leadership. There's a major disconnect, guys, between the way we think and the way the leaders of our companies think. Employees, 84% of companies think they use coercion in business. Only 46% of CEOs. We inspire our people. You know, almost 7 times more CEOs think we have a much more inspired culture. So they think their cultures are much more advanced than the employees think. So I believe it's not power over people, it's power through people. And if we don't enable and support people, train them, develop them, trust them, it's going to be hard to keep our top performers. They're going to leave. So this is a really important aspect that we're talking about here. Now, CEOs are waking up. There's a trend, what we call inspirational leadership. John Chambers, the CEO of Cisco, says, I had to give up command and control. I had to let go. How many CEOs want to let go? That's the real challenge. Is when I was in Davos, they said to the CEOs 2 things that start with. Quit pushing messages on your stakeholders. Have a conversation. Command and control is basically that. And 2, we're all independent contractors. Now, why would they tell the CEOs of the best, brightest companies that we're all independent contractors? You might be working for someone today, but the reality is your brand, your skill, you're a free agent. So there's only 3 ways to really get people to go on a journey with you. And that's what leadership is about. You have a vision, you can't do it by yourself, and they got to come with you. You can coerce them. You can motivate them with carrots and sticks. And 97% of the companies do those first 2 things, and they're not making any profits. 7 out of 10 employees are disengaged. It's really a bad situation out there, guys. But inspiration is the one renewable, free human energy force. It's unlimited. We're not using enough of it. But if you do use inspiration, you get everything you want from your employees. You trust them. They'll work for them because they buy into your purpose, because your purpose is their purpose. Now, Doug Simon, I stole this from him. This is his terminology, but it fits very well with standard trust business. We take people on a trip. So unless you're a commodity producer, you need to innovate. But what's the first thing you need to do to start the innovation process? You need the risk takers, right? Risk-taking leads to innovation. Innovation leads to progress. But what's the one thing you have to have at the beginning to start this process? Bingo! Trust. No trust, no trip. So how many companies do you think, if we have these low engagement cultures, how much risk-taking, innovation, and progress has happened? Not much, right? So this great story of an example of trust is the donut guy in Lower Manhattan. You ever heard this story? There were two donut shops. One was a donut shop on the corner in Lower Manhattan, and this guy had a donut truck. Same comparable donuts, same price. Then one day, the donut guy in his truck said he just put out a dish with the money and was preparing the donuts and coffee and allows the customers to make their own change. Let me phrase that. They're making their own change. Not many companies do that, allow their customers to put the dollar down and take their own quarter. CEO, CFO, don't tear their hair out. Go, where's the governance? How do you know they're not being ripped off? He trusted his customers. By the way, that trust allowed them to get through lines quicker. His business tripled. His profit tripled. Good decision on his part, huh? Now, every C-level executive I've ever dealt with, like I said, they like to win, they like growth. The challenge in this human aspect is a journey, and it's a winding road, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And I want to talk about mindsets at the beginning. So, institutional mindset, traditionally a CEO, let's just talk about a CEO mindset, is closed, selective, and controlling, CSC. Control, selective, and controlling. So they control everything. They're very selective where they put their focus. And but we're in a networked world. And it requires a networked mindset, which means you need to be open to everything and everyone. You need to be accepting of randomness. You need to be more random, because it doesn't come in linear. It comes from different angles at different times. And how many CFOs and CEOs have to talk about random? And finally, you have to be supportive. It took me 12 years to become open, random, and supportive, but I would never go back. But so we got to cut a little slack. Most of the leaders who've been successful came in the command and control era. It's up to them to be able to transition. It's going to take a while if they can make the transition, but it's going to take a while. It's going to be a 10-year journey, guys. This isn't going to happen. It's nudge to get companies. My concern is small companies. They'll still, I think, they realize that face-to-face, that relationship, they can make the transition. I'm concerned that, well, the big companies, the global companies, will they be able to make the transition? I think the jury's out. Johnson & Johnson's Credo, a good example of this journey. They prioritized. Number 1 is the patients. That's their number 1 stakeholder. Number 2 is the employees. Number 3 is the community. And number 4, stakeholders. Look what the CEO said. When we operate according to these principles, stockholders should receive a fair return, not will. Because if they will receive a fair return, then they start counting the number of pills they sell, not the quality of the healthcare service, not the outcome, but the number of pills they sell. So you actually get better healthcare service when you focus the mindset on good outcomes, and the money will come, the financial results will come. More bad news, only 5% of companies view themselves as high inspirational companies. Only 11% have high levels of trust, and only 30% view their businesses as significant. So would we be surprised if half the businesses disappeared on the Fortune 500? Would anyone miss them? I don't think so. According to a lot of thought leaders, I don't think they'd be missed. A lot of employees are hunkered down. They're not. And I tell people when they're dissatisfied, I go, you got, if you're not happy, you gotta quit. You gotta figure out a way. Don't get trapped. You know. But most people aren't. And this is what I'm stepping out of my presentation. I've been talking to a psychology group. This is where you come in. Most people are not clear about their purpose. I'd say 95% of people aren't clear. And if you know about your purpose, I guarantee you'll be successful. It won't all be money driven, but you'll be happy, you'll be in the zone, but most people either they get trapped in the money and the day-to-day responsibilities. I remember for me personally, 2002 was my epiphany. I was not happy working for a large consulting firm. I felt I sold my soul to the devil. A lot of people get that epiphany. I said, what do I do? what do I want to do? And I read a book by Barbara Garrity called Visionary Selling. If you really want to understand your customers, survey them. So I went to my alma mater, DePaul, talking with John through my, going back to DePaul, and did a 5-year study of CIOs. This is where my journey started. And 98% of CIOs in the survey said that they did not build great relationships with their peers. 98% of 150 CIOs in the Chicago area, all states, Motorola's, Kraft, you name it, I talked to them. Fascinating. That just shook me. It's not a technology issue. It's a relationship issue. It's a trust issue. And when Sarbanes-Oxley, when the financial crisis happened in the early 2000s, they passed the Sarbanes-Oxley bill, I asked the CIOs, I go, because all this data is on computers. You could help the CFO and CEO be compliant, because they can go to jail if they, even if they mistakenly, fraudulently, do the books. Not one CIO reached out to the CFO and said, I can help you with all that data. Not one. Fascinating chasm. There's a trust issue, even at the top. They don't trust, CFOs aren't trusted by the CEO, CFOs don't trust the CIO, it just goes around in a circle. Very few cultures, as I dictated, really have that high level of trust and carry each other's bag and respect each other. So it's all about mindset. Here we have 2 bricklayers. If you ask one guy on the left what you do for a living, he says, I'm a bricklayer. I lay bricks. I count the number of bricks with mortar and raise them up. You ask the person on the right, what do you do? He goes, I build cathedrals. I'm a cathedral builder. I collaborate with other cathedral builders and we build beautiful cathedrals. What's the difference, guys? It's the way they view. They elevate. How we connect. Who do you think performs more for you? How we gender trust, how we deepen loyalty, how we keep our promises, and how we earn relationship capital is now the source of distinction. So I'm going to very quickly go through this because you can't hardly see it. This is my methodology for assessing a company's culture. I call it standards of culture. So at the right is this do the right thing mindset I talked about earlier. And we ask back the standard of knowledge. How does the information flow, the standard of knowledge? Does the information, do you dribble it out in your company in like popcorn to pigeons? Or does it flow like a river? Where people get it when they need it so they can service their stakeholders, your customers, your partners, your employees. Standard of relationships. What's the level of trust? At this, it's high relationship capital trust. At the lower levels, a lot of checks and balances. See, coercion, guys, and motivation is very expensive to implement that process in companies. Inspiration, purpose, values, that's free. That's where a lot of profits come from. And people are happier in their job. And high performers don't want to work for these other companies. So you're not going to get the high performers to stay with you if you have these lower cultures. So to wrap up, I believe in order to sustain and grow a business, you need to proactively look after your stakeholders. Again, how we engender trust and keep commitments and keep our promises. Let me just ask a question. Do you think that buying another ERP system or another CRM system or some other technology is going to make a big difference to a company's performance? So you're going to really change the dynamic? So I believe strategy and technology don't provide long-term. It's sustainable advantage in people for strategies get leapfrogged from competitors. Technology generations get flip-flopped. But culture, how you nurture it, how you build it. You get CEOs to figure out how and use how as a noun versus a verb. How we perform, how we build trust. You teach executives how to do it. They'll scale it. They'll embed it into their DNA, into their human operating system for their company. So I ask you to do something with it. So in your next meeting, ask your team how we can outbehave the competition. I talk about this a lot, outbehaving. How can we better collaborate, connect with our employees? It's a good investment. It'll pay back. How can we earn customer loyalty? When people can leave like Netflix like that, you need glue. You need deeper glue to hold on to your employees, your customers. So that's a good focus, is how do you, because it's earned, it's not given to you. We have unlimited choice. We're point and click away from various opportunities. And finally, how can we demonstrate standard trust behavior with all our stakeholders? Because if it's just customer based, it's going to start with customers because that pays the bills. But I believe employees are equally important, if not more important, because they deliver the experience. And if they're not buying into your purpose, they won't deliver an exceptional experience to the customer or the client. So I want to thank you for your time. I hope I educated you, I hope I inspired you. It's not all bad news, but this is going to be a 10-year journey. And you guys can, as psychologists, can play a major role in making this a reality. Thank you. Any questions?
So when you think about this in relationship to entrepreneurial organizations versus companies, how does it play out? Because I kind of think that culturally they love themselves differently. So any thoughts on that?
Well, at least I haven't done a lot of research on the entrepreneurial side, but the downside of entrepreneurial is it's the founders. Usually it's the founder's point of view. This is the way they do it. Now, if the founder has a high principle, like Aaron Feuerstein, they're very principle-based. And part of the reason Aaron Feuerstein from Alden Mills invested in his employees, he's a very religious man. He believed in faith. He didn't think it was the right thing to do to just sell people out. But most executives don't have that mindset. So I think the only difference between entrepreneurial and big companies is the big companies, like I said, their governance, their scale is so huge that they have to measure everything. They have to put all this governance and risk and compliance processes, and it takes out the humanity. If you're a smaller firm, you're usually face-to-face pretty much with your team. Even if it's virtual, we Skype, you know your teammates. How many CEOs in a 20,000 person, how many do they know in their company? So I think the difference from an entrepreneurial venture is that human connection, that face-to-face, belly-to-belly trust. But that being said, there's a lot of small companies being started where people, I know a company that they only get together once every 90 days, but they do all their other meetings on Skype, and they're all over the world. London, San Francisco, South Africa, Japan. So they're never physically in the same room. But you don't necessarily have to be physically in a room anymore to trust someone, right? If you could get eye contact on Skype or some of these other technologies, you can build pretty good trusted relationships. But that's the only thing I can say is I think the difference is really the scale, the belly-to-belly, the face-to-face trust. I think it's going to be easier, not to say that the smaller firms can't be coercive, motivation-based. They don't have to necessarily be high relationship capital-based. I don't think I answered your question, but it's the best I can do. I'm not sure if I got the first part of your question.
Have you conducted research for profit organizations only or for nonprofit?
It's been for-profit, but actually it's all organization, it wasn't just. But nonprofits have some advantage because they're very purpose-based typically. People don't work for nonprofits typically to make a lot of money, right? So they do it for purpose. They do it to make a difference. They have a cause. It's about serving your fellow man in some way. So that's a major advantage for nonprofits. I think we need to have more for-profit. Now, how many people would lay down their life for their employer? Our military does, right? Well, you wouldn't, right? But we need what does commitment mean to a lot of people? Smaller firms might be more committed if they trust the boss.
I lay down myself.
Very well said. You believe in yourself and you're committed. Yeah, it's like the difference between the chicken and the hog. The chicken is involved in making an egg. Hog is committed to making bacon. Right? So, any other questions?
Which company would you say today best represents the ideas you displayed here? Which large company is the top of doing this right now?
I think Tesla, Amazon, Google, to some extent, Google's getting so big, I think they might be having some challenges because of the scale. For example, I had a chance to meet Jeff Bezos a couple years ago, and he talks about my topic of relation capital in an annual report, I think it was 2 years ago or last year, where a great story was 9 million Amazon customers bought streamed a movie for $90, and Amazon's platform keeps track of all this data. It was a bad stream. And the CFO is telling the story about how Amazon's got a very small call center, so they had to ramp up the call center, expecting angry customers wanting their money back. And Jeff Bezos heard the story, and Jeff has known to swear in leadership meetings. This isn't good enough. And the CFO goes, what do you mean it wasn't good enough? We knew they had a bad experience, right? Just give them their money back. Now, how many companies do that? example, in my book, I interviewed Don Peppers, who received the Lifetime Achievement Award last year for the American Marketing Association. He created the concept of one-to-one marketing. And he told me a story how he flies JetBlue. And he lives in Tampa, Florida, going to meet Procter & Gamble in New York. He's got a lot of advertising, consumer packaged goods clients in New York. 4 hours late taking off. Just people are angry. They get off the plane, and a representative from JetBlue hands each people a piece of paper. Says, "We apologize for that experience. He owns this mechanical problem." You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything. You're going to get your money back. Because in the airline industry, you know, it depends on how you buy the ticket. It can be very complicated how you get reimbursed. Usually, they can send you a website with a code. 75% of people never ever put that code in. The CFOs, the finance departments love it because they pocket that money. But see, that's what the best companies do. What did Elon Musk do just last month, maybe a couple months? He gave away all their IP. Go at it. Here, we're giving it away. All he asked was people use it for good intent. This is, you know, I talk about relationship capital, and John mentioned that, you know, how I assess companies and individuals. I believe to earn relationship capital today, there's 4 attributes. You have to have competency. You have to have character. You have to have good intent towards the other, and you have to have proactivity. What does it mean? We're in an instant gratified world now. You can't just deliver on the expectation of the customer. You have to be ahead of them. What does Amazon do when you try to buy the same book twice? Well, they ask you, you bought this book, do you really want to buy it again? You might want to buy it for a friend, right? They warn you. That's good intent. And I think proactively looking after your customer's interests. This is the next journey on this. Just delivering on the promise is not good enough. That's table stakes. You have to have a good product and a good service. But how you do deliver that service, how you do build that trust, that's going to allow you to win. Having a good product just keeps you in the game. Any thoughts or questions? You have a question?
So in the centers of culture, you use numbers, and in the let me be more specific. Chaotic is 0.
That's a baseline.
Right. Coercion is 1. Motivation is 2. And in your diagram of the levels of where the percentages are, you've got these arrows. Is it your belief that if you're a coercive company, that you have to make this pit stop at just a motivational company before you get to inspirational?
You can't leapfrog, but you can go through it pretty quickly. But coercion's a tough one because it's very fear-based. It's very short-term focused. You know, it's almost survival mode type of mindset in a coercion-based company. There's not a long-term distinction of purpose. We're trying to ship product out the door. We're trying to, and usually have a lot more problems or defects to deal with. People aren't as engaged. There's a lot of problems in that level of culture in order to. So yeah, it's not easy. It's not an easy journey to move. It really needs probably either replacement of the primary owner, a new executive, and it's a journey. You just can't turn this on. People are not robots, right? I mean, the concern I have is, I didn't talk much about it, is the next wave of algorithms, guys. Algorithms, I'm partnering with a company called Scredible at the next level, but some people, a lot of business leaders, a lot of people don't like social. They think it's a time suck, right? Let's let the robots at it. Let robot talk to robot. Represent me, my pseudo. I would feel bad about that, but my intuition tells me there's going to be a social network that's all robot. And they're going to compete with the humans, and we'll see where this kind of settles. But I just think so algorithms. I'm about open standards of measuring relationship capital, commitments, perceptions using debits and credits. But I got technology people that are just craving and bolt-on algorithms. So these algorithms got to really be credible, as human as possible. Because I'm afraid that Google, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, they're going to be the arbiters of our reputations, our influence. And I think, here's another thing I had a chance to present to the Federal Reserve Bank a couple years, 3 years ago. And one thing that no one could answer this to me, not even the Federal Reserve, is the challenge that I see is all this humanity, all this quality of relationship measure. There's nowhere, where in the income statement, balance sheet, cash flow are we measuring this stuff? We're not. And if we're not measuring it, then it's not value. I talk about measuring. We need to, and the open standards by the accountants aren't going to figure this out. They need to be told what to measure. They're not going to do it. So I'm trying to push my standard on them and say, I presented to the Financial Executives International Conference, got a standing ovation. The CFOs love the relationship cap measuring commitments. It's much more tailored. The president of Northern Trust, Rick Waddell, loved the concept. It's one thing to love it, getting them to do it, it's been a journey. It's been hard. So I think it's going to be a long term, but people like you who are dealing with humans, and I think it's the human aspect, and how we get self-aware and emotionally intelligent, how we build that trust. If that doesn't distinguish you going forward, and I don't think people can do it by themselves. They need counsel, they need mentors, they need teachers. That's where you guys come in.
Now, where can we find on social media?
Standard Trust is my profile on Twitter. Rob Peters on LinkedIn, Standard Trust Group on LinkedIn. I'm easily found. You Google me, Rob Peters, Standard Trust. Connect with me. And I'd love you to tweet if you want to buy my book. You can get paperback or soft or Kindle book on Amazon. So a lot of these concepts are in there, but I try to operationalize how to take individuals, groups, and companies to this more human reality. That it's coming. How long? It's going to get invested. They cannot live without it now. Because the millennials want, when they have a question, they want it answered now, not wait. That's the challenge, it's the mindset. This is not rocket science stuff. If the leader would buy into this, they would get more profits, happier employees, more engagement, more innovation, less corporate malfeasance. What's there not to love? So why aren't we doing more of this? It's not just a careers crisis. I'm hard on leaders, obviously. But it's about the leader. You've got to be an example, lead by example. And I'm not seeing a lot of that yet. I think it's coming because, here's my intuition, very intuitive person. I think most of the traditional leaders are got to move on. I don't think they're going to make the transition. And once the stakeholders, the shareholders, the investor community wakes up and realizes that you can make more money with this higher level of culture, then they'll move quicker. And I think more younger, more 21st century mindsets start taking over the business. When that comes, I thought it would be here quicker by now, but I think this economy, the good thing about this slow economy last few years, okay, slow sales, they're starting to reevaluate everything in the company because marketing doesn't work, engagement's bad. They got to start innovating in the how, not innovating just in the what. And buying technology or creating new strategy.